Croeso and welcome to the Education Scrutiny meeting today, Tuesday the 21st of September 2021. This meeting will be recorded and made available to view via the Council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images, audio of those individuals speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the Council's website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. So the first item is to receive apologies for absence. Could we have a roll call, please, Kath?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to take a roll call. We do have apologies from Councillor Gaynor Oliver and Mr Weston, our co-opted member. Mr Edmonds, your hands up, Chair.
Hello, Ed.
Thank you, Mrs Forbes-Thompson. Yeah, just wanted to let you know that Sue Richards has been called away this evening, so she's offered her apologies. We'll do our best to do her stuff for her in her absence. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll go through members now, the members of the committee in the first instance. If I call your name, please just confirm you're in attendance. Councillor Aldworth?
Present.
Councillor Andrews?
Present.
Councillor Bevan? Councillor Collis?
Present.
I don't see Councillor David. Councillor Farina Childs?
Present.
I don't see Councillor Gale. I don't see Councillor Hardacre, and I don't see Councillor Havard. I don't see Councillor James. I don't see Councillor Jones. Councillor Miles?
Present.
Councillor Parry?
Present.
I can't see Councillor Roberts, and I can't see Councillor Simmons. I'll go to the co-opted members. We've had apologies, as I said, from Mr Weston. I can't see Mrs Millington. Mr James?
Yeah, present.
And Mr Davis? I could excuse me.
Present.
Thank you. That's the members of the committee, Chair. And we do also have two speakers, Sue Richards. It's given apologies. Richard Owen?
Yeah, present.
Nicola Davis?
Present.
And of course, Mr Edmonds.
Can I just update you, Kath? Councillor Roberts has just joined us.
Oh yeah, Councillor Roberts.
Hello, apologies for being slightly late. Had to feed the dog, thank you.
Councillor Phil Bevan's got his hand up.
Yeah, could I ask how Mr Weston is, because he's got cancer, isn't he? So do we know if he's okay or? He's
in hospital. He has one of his regular things, so he's just given up. He just gave tentative apologies. He wasn't sure if he could make it. I'll update members if I hear anything.
Perhaps the chair could send him our regards.
Will do. Thank you, Phil. Can I just say we are welcoming to the guests Mr Richard Owen, head teacher of Idris Davies School, and Nicola Davis, who's head teacher of Nanta Park and Tŷ Newydd primary schools. So croeso i'r cyfarfod, and I am sure all here today would like to offer our congratulations to Nicola Davis, who was awarded an MBE earlier this year for her outstanding contribution. Llongyfarchiadau, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Right, item next is item 3. So, sorry, I need to just go through councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and or prejudicial interest in respect of any item of business on this agenda, in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. If we can then go on to item 3. And if I can just go through the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 29th of June 2021. And we'll be going through page by page for accuracy only. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. And page 6. Can I ask for the minutes of that meeting to be moved and seconded, please?
I'll move them, Chair.
Thank you very much, Carol. And could I also ask for a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second that, Phil Bevan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bevan. Okay, we'll be moving on to the vote. Okay, the vote will be in front of you shortly. And if you go to the show conversation, it'll also be there. So if you'd like to vote for, against, or abstain and submit, please.
That's moved, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, okay. Can I ask, has there been any, Kath, has there been any matter referred to the committee in accordance with the call-in procedure?
No, Chair.
Okay, so we will go on to item 5, and that's the forward work programme. If you can all bring that up and have a look.
Chair, if you're happy, I'll take this.
Yes,
members, I just direct you onto Appendix 1, which is the current work programme. Can I just highlight to member, we offered an item on the 2nd of November, which is additional needs. We have been asked if we could move this to the next summer, because apparently they need to do some work following the changes to the ALN, and I'd like to bring us next in summer 2022 if members are agreeable to that.
We will need to vote on the forward work programme, but has anybody any questions regarding the work programme as it stands? Okay, so we'll go on to the poll then. The poll function will show in the show
Can we
conversation.
move to seconded, Chair, please?
Oh, sorry.
Could
we have somebody to move and second, please?
Move the work programme.
Thank you. And seconded, please.
A second, Teresa. Andrew Finney-Childs.
Thank you very much, Councillor Finney-Childs. Okay, and we'll move to the poll now.
That's moved, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much. And can I ask our Cabinet Member for Education, Councillor Whiting, Ross, would you like to introduce the next item, item 7, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think this was mainly presentations from the head teachers. Obviously, as everybody knows, it's been an incredibly difficult year for all of our schools. I think I think they can probably say it better than I ever could. So I'm happy for the head teachers to present, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Yes, certainly. Can we ask which who's going first? Ed, would you like to
Yeah, of course, Chair. Look, rather than giving both of our head teachers a heart attack, they're here to answer questions on the presentation rather than present themselves. So I thought it was important to set the record straight there. Kerry is going to introduce the presentation. And I think she's going to ask me to be a beautiful assistant again. But I'm also conscious that I think I've probably got a presentation version 1 too old. So I'm wondering whether Kerry can either send me the new one or run with the one that I've got. Run with the one that I've got. I thought that'd be the case. Bear with me a sec. I'll put that on the screen for you now.
There was only one minor change, so. Okay, thank you.
Hopefully you can see that, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Ed. Good evening, everyone. It's a year since I was here last with the same title. And a lot has happened since then. So I don't apologise, but doing a whistle-stop tour of what's happened with schools since the pandemic began, because I think it puts into context the challenges and the constant challenges that schools have faced over that period. So please bear with me, I'll be very quick. Next, Ed. So you've seen this slide before. We know that we went into lockdown in March 20. Schools closed their sites, and straight away we opened up childcare for key workers and vulnerable children. And we worked out of hubs, and volunteers came forward from head teachers. Both Nicola and Richard actually volunteered to lead hubs, and that worked very successfully for us. Next. We had more and more applications for childcare as people returned to work. So we then had to open additional hubs, and over 1,700 staff volunteered to contribute to those situations. So we were really grateful and really happy with that. Next. Schools then reopened at the end of June last year. And the idea was to catch up with children, check in and prepare for the return in September. Numbers were going down. There was a sense of optimism in the air. And we were looking forward to coming back to September, a little uncertain about what it would hold. But the sun was shining, people had a little bit of freedom, and there was a real sense of, you know, things are going to get easier. Next. And then September happened. So the optimism didn't last long, because, you know, I remember very vividly working on all the guidance that was required to go back into schools in September. And we were first into lockdown, and we were shocked by that. It all happened very quickly. We hadn't even had time to adjust some of the documentation. And from then on, you know, things became more and more difficult through that term. As the rest of the country locked down completely, schools continued to function. We continually revised risk assessments, and throughout that period, the free school meal delivery programme continued to run, and it's one of the things that we're most proud of, as I'm sure you will agree. Next. We also, as we continued in that term, the numbers got higher and higher, and we were coming under real pressure within schools, you know, operating those processes. And, you know, to the point where those, sorry, is everyone on mute?
Could I ask everyone to put their microphones on mute, please?
Somebody's trying to kill a child, and it's definitely not me.
I thought it was a cat, but never mind. We got to December and we were limping really at that point. Numbers were going higher and higher. Many staff were off, many pupils were off self-isolating, and we were becoming really concerned about the situation when there was a Welsh Government announcement around early school site closure on the 11th of December, and we switched to remote learning for secondary pupils. Primaries continued, but we're under incredible pressure as we came up to Christmas. It really was so tough. And we made the decision in Caerphilly that we would close 2 days early on site and switch to remote learning, and that we would offer provision for vulnerable pupils and key workers, although there was no take up for that. What the main characteristic of that period was 24/7, 7 days a week. Head teachers in particular continually on call to issue, you know, self-isolation notices, dealing with really complex issues, and staff from the LA included being on call throughout that period every weekend. It really was a tough time. And so our hope was that as we went into Christmas, with that fire break, that things would improve after Christmas. Ed, next. As we came into January, things only got worse, and there was a full national lockdown with schools remaining closed on site. By now, I think remote learning had really moved, and people were much more confident with it. The equipment was more available. So this now was beginning to get into a rhythm and unimaginably successful. If you told schools a year before this is how they'd be working, I don't think, well, if you told us this is how we'd be working, we wouldn't have imagined it. But we went into that situation in the spring term with foundation pupils returning in February, pupils in 7 to 9 in March, and then the final year groups returning in April. Again, the main characteristic of this period was the focus on vaccination and the hope that that was bringing, but also the main concern being around exam classes and how can these children now, be assessed for their qualifications without, with such a disrupted education. And that's where, many of our secondary heads were focused in terms of making sure they did everything they could for children in that situation. Again, throughout that period in the spring, there was provision for children of key workers and vulnerable pupils on site. So school staff were still coming on to site to deliver face-to-face learning. Next. Come April, people were beginning to work their way through that vaccination program. So the mood was lightening. We had the completion of statutory testing and the centre determined grades process. I've talked to you about this before, where every child for every subject had to have evidence to produce grades for each of those that were subject, open to appeal. So there was a need for a really rigorous process throughout. There were several outbreaks of positive cases through the summer. So even where schools were focusing on preparing children and young people for these situations, there was constant disruption, and every week, brought a new challenge to schools, particularly throughout this period to secondary, I'd have to say. One of the highest outbreaks was in the Cwmrymni cluster, where, we were dealing with 30 cases 1 minute, and the next minute it was 100 cases, and then it was the end of term. And the attention then shifted to the preparation for September. What would that look like? I think there was an anxiety about predicting anything based on the year before. Next. So normally I'd skip from July to September, but actually I had to put a section in for July to August because, particularly secondary head teachers were working through the summer. Not only were they working on the possible appeals with the grades process, but they were trying very hard to get ready for the new process in September. It really was a case that they were still answering queries around from TTP, and they were struggling with the concept of how will we come in September with no bubbles, with no staggered starts and finishes? How will this look? Core guidance came out several times in the summer. Again, head teachers, across the phases, responding in consultation to those documents. And the latest one came out just before the new term started. Next. What have been the successes in that period? This is my personal reflection. The head teachers may give you different views. I've told them to speak openly to you when you ask them questions, be completely honest. You want to hear how things are in real life and real time. But my perception is that throughout, the last 18 months, there have been excellent working relationships between the LA and schools, without exception. All officers involved in the programme gave up their time freely, gave up weekends, never ever complained. Head teachers have been outstanding, you know, being full on involved in the contact tracing. You know, in the education world, we do education. We haven't had to get involved with health this way before. But everyone has stepped up to the mark, and I'm sure they would applaud their entire staff teams, governors and pupils in the same way. They valued that support very much, and we also included a head teacher helpline. So it was a retired head teacher from Caerphilly, and you know, she took calls all the time from people who were just anxious, wanting to run something past someone, just wanting someone to listen to how bad their day was. And again, that proved to be really supportive to everyone concerned. The free school meal delivery continued through the summer also, which again is unusual. And all schools, you know, this is probably the biggest thing that I'm very proud of. All schools remained open despite having very high numbers of pupils and staff self-isolating. I think at one point we had one class left in a school. I think that was Derwentdig. There was a point at which I thought we'd formally have to close the school, but one class kept coming in. And can you imagine being on the staff team in that school at that point then, where everyone around you is going off and you're still going in to work, you know, to work with pupils and support them. So really proud of that. Next. What have been the most challenging aspects? Again, the head teachers will give you, you know, a view. I'd say keeping everyone safe by constantly reviewing, communicating, embedding risk assessments. They were changing so frequently and having to change really quickly. We talk a lot about agile working, having to be agile enough to respond to all these changes very quickly and keep literally hundreds of people, or be them little people in some cases, safe was a massive task. Managing messages for pupils, staff and governors, parents, carers, particularly when the rules changed and they were different to England. We constantly were battling with, yes, that's England. No, this is, you know. Managing the spectrum of attitudes. We've got some people who are still extremely anxious. We've got other people who are COVID, what COVID? You know, and schools have to manage that whole thing across, because you've got people, you know, with concerns either end of that. And then coping with the workload involved in the ever-changing demand for reactive practice, and in particular out-of-hours work in identifying, contacting close contacts. And certainly in the autumn term and up to Easter, heads didn't have a free weekend, you know, because you had to constantly be looking at your phone and responding to queries. Next. So September 21 onwards, what will be different? These are the main headlines. There is now, through the new guidance, there is no recommendation for bubbles or contact groups, because the ability to stagger start and finish times has been removed by Welsh Government. That was a temporary measure. Having said this, I would be honest with you and say many schools have retained those zoned off areas and zoned off groups wherever possible, because it just makes life easier for the senior team when having to identify pupils. No recommendation for face coverings in classrooms. Unless you test positive, no one under 18, nor those fully vaccinated, would be required to self-isolate. And I think that was really hard to take in. Head teachers found that really difficult to accept, particularly when, and there are cases where, you know, maybe 3 members within a household are positive and the other child is still coming to school. Okay, so that's been a quite difficult to handle. And close contacts will receive a warning in form notification now. So TTP, working with the school, will identify who the closest of contacts are and send them a letter that basically says, you know, watch out, be alert, be vigilant, be extra vigilant, don't go near vulnerable people if you know, try to avoid that, go for a test twice in this period, and, you know, stay away from people as much as you can. But obviously in a primary school, and this was easily predicted, You can't ask a 3-year-old who they've played with. Well, you can ask. I don't know what sort of answers you'd get, but certainly it's not a reliable situation. So many head teachers have felt really, worried about what detail to give. In secondary situations, again, being asked for additional information is a real challenge. When you've got hundreds and hundreds of people on site, how do you know who they've walked in with? How do you know who they saw at lunchtime, etc.? So very challenging. Next. And these are the challenges that remain, and I'm just going to bring you up to date on this slide to set it into a context. The first thing I'd say is our school staff, from every part of that staffing team, are absolutely still dedicated and committed to making this work. They know it takes a lot to do it, but they are committed and dedicated to that, and they've been unswerving in that. Right now, we are averaging about 100 cases a day, 100 positive cases a day. 90% of those are pupils, 10% staff. That's generally what we're seeing. And those numbers feel huge to schools. And you can imagine that some schools are having a lot more pressure than others. In addition to that, not everyone has been doubly vaccinated on staff, so there are additional staff having to self-isolate. And of course, you've got a lot of staff now going for PCR tests. Any symptom that related to COVID, people are doing the right thing and going for a test, but ultimately that impacts on the absence rates of staff day to day. And we have had several cases this week where a class has had to be closed because of staffing. Agencies are running out of staff and it's incredibly difficult. Our current area of concern was around Trinity Fields. We've had, a high number, proportionately high number of pupils testing positive there. And of course, we are extremely, careful around the most vulnerable adults and staff. And there have been times when the head teacher there has really struggled in terms of having staff on site who are adequately prepared to work in such a setting. So that's difficult. Many people in the school community are anxious. They would be people who wouldn't be going into crowded places, and going into a school where the majority of people on that site are not vaccinated at all because they're too young, it makes them fearful. So there's still that to deal with. For the first time in this pandemic, I've received direct communication from staff just saying how it feels to be in that situation, particularly those who might live with vulnerable people or be vulnerable themselves. Embedding the identification and contacting of close contacts, this has been really tricky when the TTP system is under such pressure and the numbers are so high. Inevitably, there's a delay in being able to do this efficiently, and that's led to heads writing their own letters, just informing people that they will be contacted by TTP because they're likely to be identified as a contact. And I think the big one on the bottom, for heads is around supporting pupils and staff in their well-being and learning going forward, the day job. That you can't do the day job until you have a group of people who feel safe and secure and, that they are supported in that anxiety. So a massive ask to any school in this time. And although I focused predominantly on schools in this presentation, I would have to add that this goes for, earlier settings, for youth services and any other pieces of work that we do with children and young people. So that's all from me. There are some links at the end of the presentation, and I think you need the links, not the documents, because again, this is, these things are changing so regularly. So if you wanted to check them out, the links are better. You have got tonight 2 excellent head teachers who have been amazing throughout this period. Like our other head teachers, I had so many to choose from. I literally could have asked any of the heads to come in and do this. but both Nicola and Richard have been so active in this. They both ran HEBs, and they also have been very involved in terms of cases. Nicola also is the NEU rep, has been the NEU rep in our trade union meetings that we hold weekly. So I'm sure they're really best placed to answer the questions than me, but I'm also happy to take questions. Thank you. Diolch.
Thank you, Kerry. So, have we any questions for our head teachers or for Kerry? Well, I would like to have both their opinions on what they have felt has been the most challenging aspect of this COVID during the last year. So could I come to Mr. Owen first, please?
Yes, certainly. Most challenging aspect of the last 18 months. That's a real difficult question to answer. Sorry. There's been lots and lots of different challenging areas. One of the big ones from a secondary point of view has obviously been the impact on our Key Stage 4 and 5 learners, and actually trying to give some clarity to our pupils and our parents as to what's needed in terms of getting them through that final hurdle in Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5. Guidance has been a challenge, the changes to it, and understandably the guidance has changed from the very beginning. None of us knew back 18 months ago, March. I can remember when we were talking about closing down schools, me thinking we'd be back in the buildings in a month, it's fine, we can cope with this, we can just get on with it. And then the dawning realization that actually this is going to be a longer term way of working, and then actually setting up the systems and procedures to actually adapt the school to cater for the needs of our learning community throughout that period of time. So the challenge for me at that point was probably originally was getting children home safely and ensuring they had something to do in the short term, and then actually adapting our school organisation to cater for children for distance learning was a substantial challenge, and making sure that the learners we had on site throughout that period of time were kept as safe as possible, and that our staff in school actually knew exactly what they needed to do, when they needed to do it, and how we were supporting our learners. I could sit here all night and go through the different things that we put in place. It really, really would take that length of time. But the staff of our school were amazing and rose to the challenges straight away and adapted to the new way of working. But I think for me, the big challenge was adapting our organisation quickly to a changing situation that none of us knew, and we still don't to a certain extent. What we are facing, it changes day by day and continues to do so. So that's what I would say was our biggest challenge, is facing the uncertainty and adapting a big organisation to try and cater for the needs of our learning community throughout that period.
Oh, thank you for that. Could I come to Nicola Davis, please?
Hello. I think for us, we're in a very tight-knit community in St Gennydd, because I've only just taken over from Tynewydd. So, you know, the majority of this pandemic has been while I've been in Nanta Park, and it's been managing the anxieties of not just the school community, but the wider school community as well. And I felt that it's always felt to us to be the font of knowledge. And even though we've always pretended, not pretended, that's the wrong word, but we've always maintained that knowledge and that reassurance and that confidence in our manner with whoever we deal with throughout this pandemic. We don't always know the right answers. So we've had, you know, luckily we've had, you know, fabulous LA officers to fall on for that advice. You know, very often Kerry and I would be on the phone weekends, evenings, gaining the advice from all of the members of the school community, and that could be parents, governors, pupils, staff, even, you know, our union members who are constantly asking for support and guidance and reassurance, and being that person who they trust, and being that person who has all the answers and has that reassurance. And that's been hard. That's been really tricky and a big challenge, because very often we didn't know the answers, and we've had to you know, that's been very tricky, I felt, because I've always wanted to maintain this confidence and maintain the, you know, the trust of everyone in the school community, and sometimes it's been tricky.
Thank you. I really don't underestimate the kind of responsibility you've had on your shoulders. You know, so if we can go to Councillor Carol Andrews now for the next question.
I think my question would be directed at Kerry, but first of all, I just want to pass my congratulations and well done to all school members for all the hard work and the successful work that you've achieved in the last 18 months. But as a nurse, I'm obviously aware of the rise in COVID cases, and you've alluded to some of the schools already, Kerry, that they've got large numbers of pupils already diagnosed. And I've noticed in the press this week that Neathport, Talbot and Swansea councils have reimposed some of the COVID restrictions. And I just wondered if we've got any plans to follow suit.
So the decision-making framework starts with Wales being in the zero risk position and is predicated on that because of the vaccine programme. We met in the LA and decided to pitch our risk assessment at the moderate level because we felt that because of the lack of vaccination in schools, it wasn't the same starting point. And from conversations with secondary and primary heads, it felt very much that everyone would be more comfortable pitching the risk assessment at the moderate level. So that's what we've done. There's not a big difference between moderate and high in terms of mitigations, because quite frankly, you know, we're doing all the ones that we can at the moderate level. So things like face covering, encouraging face coverings, etc. So really, at the moment, we think that's appropriate. When a school has a certain level of cases, we have an IMT, Instant Management Meeting, and we look at, is there anything special we need to do for that particular situation? So we've had one of those to date this term, and we introduced a couple of different things based on the particular context of that school. So that's what we'll continue to do. But we basically, the risk assessment schools are operating now, apart from the bubbles and the staggered start and finish times, are practically the same as they were in the summer, because I think head teachers felt the shift was too dramatic. Because, you know, in July it was one way of working, military precision. Come September, they wanted it to be familiar for staff and pupils. So that's where we've pitched it. Did you want to add anything, Richard or Nick, to that?
I just say that from our point of view, I mean, we encourage face cover, and in all corridors and communal areas, we decided as a school that we were more comfortable with that. We providing those on a daily basis for any pupils that haven't got them. And obviously in the secondary, and all staff in the school are actively encouraged to take part in the LFT testing programme. It's been really interesting, actually, that's for us has picked up quite a few cases prior to them coming in. They test on a Sunday and a Wednesday afternoon in our school, and that's picked up a number of cases because I get the notifications to say that they're positive. But we like Kelly said, there isn't that much difference, Kelly, is there, between the two levels, and we felt as a school we would rather hit the ground running in September quite hard in some of these control measures. And in the primary phase in our school, we've maintained as far as possible things like bubbles, even though that they're not necessarily recommended at this point. We've maintained that to try and mitigate the potential impact of any positive cases. That said, we have had an accelerated number of positive cases the last few weeks, and it's the guidance and the impact of those cases is what's different from us. So the control measures we can control in school, we've maintained. What we can't control now is obviously the new guidance saying that where there's a positive case, the recommendation is that those around them don't now self-isolate. So that for me is the big difference between how we're operating now and in the summer term. In the summer term, we had that ability to almost stem that outbreak quite quickly by saying that group is going to go off. Now it's a different circumstance where I can't do that, because I'm saying, I know you were sat next to that child that's tested positive yesterday. However, you just need to be vigilant for symptoms, which feels for me very, very different in the way in which we're operating now until from July to now is very, very different. And for me, I feel that's the bit that actually I don't have the control over that I did have in the summer term.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you very much for your answers.
Councillor Phil Bevan.
Yeah, certainly congratulations to all the schools who've had to handle this very difficult situation and continuing to do so. I was just wondering, Kerry, whether you could tell me whether the accelerated learning funding is being extended because with Cwmrymni we had a very good settlement because it's a big school, 1,843 pupils in an anglicised area, trying to teach children Welsh from English-speaking homes. And it's like as if the job is not quite, isn't it? You know, it's been very good. We have employed 12, we paid 12 teachers to do this catch up. And it is working very well, but it just needs that little bit of extra, whether the school will pay for it or the county or even the Senate. I was just wondering whether there is any move at all to get any money off you, Kerry, or certainly if not off you from the Senate.
Well, I'm not the financial expert on the call tonight. It's
She's
Jane
gone, isn't she?
Southcombe.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping Jane is on the call. Jane, are you there?
I'm here. Yes, the good news is that Welsh Government gave all our schools an allocation for the new academic year, Councillor Bevan. So they've all had a notification of their allocations now for this current academic year. So same as last year. They know how much till the end of March, and then they'll know how much for the summer term next year. So that's really positive news. That's been continued.
Oh, there you are. Then that's a failure of communication with the head, I suspect. But he's a very busy man. I feel really sorry for him. He's a new head coming into a chaos, and then having to appoint new staff and get his team around him. But Kerry thinks he does a good job, I think, doesn't he?
There's an awful lot going on.
He's a bit busy.
Thank you, Jane.
On that point of finance, though, I think it's important to say that many things schools have been able to claim back will not be possible to claim going forward. So there are some pressures coming through, I think.
Could I also ask, did any of you have to use the head teacher helpline, or did you go straight through to Kerry? Because I know Kerry was extremely busy, and as you said, Davis, that you were on the phone with Kerry. But did anybody use the head teacher's helpline, and how was the response for you? If you did use it, how was the response for you?
Well, I didn't use the helpline in the fact of the helpline, but I used Kerry quite a lot. You know, having Kerry's mobile number, right or wrong, you know, she was always at the end of the phone for me, and you know that was truly helpful because I felt, because of my union role as well, there were a lot of people coming in lots of different directions, not just from my community that I work in. So you know, I suppose going direct to Kerry alleviated a lot of those concerns, you know, very, very quickly. I am aware of head teachers who did use the helpline and found it extremely helpful, but I wasn't one of those myself, other than Kerry's hotline.
I used the helpline as I used Kerry's number quite a lot, and Paul's. But one of the big things I would just like to say, throughout the last 18 months, there has never been a situation or set of circumstances where I haven't known where to turn to in the authority. And I've got head teachers who are friends in lots of different authorities across Wales, and I know that not all of them have had the same experience we have. And I consider myself incredibly lucky to work in Caerphilly, where I've had that relationship with all officers, and they've been able to answer questions. And it's a very lonely job. And Nick said just now about the fact, you know, we were often seen and are seen as people who are the people to go to ask the questions when people are having difficulties. And for me, when I didn't know the answer to something, I knew somebody who did. And I felt I was incredibly lucky in Caerphilly that there was always somebody that I could turn to, be it another head, be it a council officer, but there was always somebody there backing me the entire way over the last 18 months.
Yeah,
that's really lovely.
Sorry, Teresa, just adding to that, I'm a governor in a local authority, not Caerphilly. I am in Caerphilly as well, but in another authority. And the head teacher of that school very often would link into me throughout mainly in the beginning of the pandemic, to say, what are Caerphilly doing? What are Caerphilly doing? What's going on? Do you understand this guidance? And because, you know, the relationship we have with Kerry, the very regular meetings that we had to keep us up to date, to make us aware and to make us understand what was coming our way or had come our way, I felt I was able to translate that, you know, to another authority head as well, who was able to translate that wider too. So it wasn't just within Caerphilly that we appreciated, you know, all of the support we had.
That's lovely, because that's, you know, shows that Caerphilly was using the best practice, and I think we've been incredibly lucky to have such great, you know, staff and support, and we've got a gem in Kerry as well. So, do we have any other questions here for our guests this evening? Okay, well, I thank you both very much for coming and speaking with us today. Yes, and good luck, because the pandemic hasn't really gone away, has it? You know, and like you said, it's a changing, challenging situation. So I wish you both, you know, very well anyway for the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If we can move back, sorry, to item 6, the cabinet reports, I can tell you that there had been no reports called forward. So item 8, 21st Century Schools and Colleges, the Band B programme. It's an update on phase 2, and could I have Councillor Ross Whiting to introduce, please? Ross, are you there to introduce the next item? If I could ask Ed Edmonds then to introduce the next item, please.
Of course you can, Chair. I'm not sure what's happened with Ross. He's showing on my call, but his mic's off. So I'll do my best to step into the mix. If he joins us while I'm introducing the report, I'm sure he may have a few more words to say. Bear with me a second. Okay, so the purpose of this report is to update members on the 21st Century Schools and Colleges Band B Phase 2 programme. And we're seeking endorsement of a recommendation to Cabinet to proceed to consultation in respect of the Phase 2 projects, which, as members will be aware, includes the amalgamation of Lancaig Junior and Llanfabon Infant School, a new replacement Placerfellin Primary School, and the establishment of a new Centre for Vulnerable Learners (brackets Pupil Referral Unit. Members are also asked to endorse a recommendation to Cabinet that 4.716 million is set aside from the authority's place shaping reserve in respect of the authority's financial contribution to Phase 2 of the 21st Century Schools and Colleges Band B programme. And to bring all this to life for you, I think we've got Andrea West on the call, Chair, if I could bring her in at that point, if Ross has not yet returned.
And we've just had a message from Ross. The button on his computer is not working. So, yeah. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you very much. Just to sort of reiterate what Ed has previously said, in April this year, 7th of April this year, Cabinet agreed for us to submit outline business cases to Welsh Government in respect of the 3 proposals for the Phase 2 of the Band B programme. They were, as Ed said, the amalgamation of Lancaig Junior and Llanfabon Infant School on the infant school site. The proposal is to expand the school to accommodate 275 pupils plus nursery plus community facilities. In respect of Placerfellin Primary School, we're proposing a replacement school on the existing school site, which will accommodate 420 pupils plus nursery and again community facilities, and a expansion and adaptation of the former Pottenfraith Grammar School site in obviously Pottenfraith to become what we refer to as a Centre for Vulnerable Learners, but for the purpose of the majority of reports to Welsh Government, it will be known as a Pupil Referral Unit. We're asking members tonight, as Ed said, to endorse the proposals to move to Cabinet for approval in order that we can proceed to consultation. These proposals are very different in as much as the Llanfabon-Lancaig proposal is covered by the School Organisation Code, and as such we're required to follow the process as we have done for the 2 previous projects, where we undertake a full consultation process with the consultees that are outlined within the School Organisation Code. We are proposing to go out to consultation on the 20th of October and ending at midnight on the 1st of December. It's a 42-day period, and we'll be coming back to you as scrutiny members, as consultees, on the, bear with me, the 2nd of November in relation to the consultation process. As I said, that will follow the process then as outlined in the school organisation code. In respect of the other two proposals, the first one being Placervelin Primary School, we're proposing to build the school in the existing Placervelin school site for 420 pupils plus nursery with community provision. Because the school isn't being built more than 1 mile from the existing school site, and it's not increasing more than 25% within the capacity of the school, we are not required to undertake the consultation process that's outlined in the school organisation code. However, we are proposing that we will undertake a consultation process because obviously that will allow us then to be transparent, open and obtain views going forward. So under the principles of the engagement outlined in the Local Authorities Consultation and Engagement Framework 2020, we acknowledge this, and therefore we're proposing to engage with relevant interested parties as a result. Again, that proposal will run for the same period of time. So we are proposing to sort of mirror the process that's been undertaken for Llanfairpwll and Llancaiach, albeit it's not a statutory process. And then in relation to the Centre for Vulnerable Learners, we're proposing to adapt and expand to include sporting facilities and community facilities on the Pontman Ffraith High School site to accommodate between 80 to 120 learners. Again, this particular proposal is exempt from the school organisation code because the school organisation code doesn't cover the requirements of the pupil referral unit. So we're proposing that we undertake the same consultation that we are looking to undertake for Placervelin Primary School. What we're actually looking to do then, following that, we will bring a full consultation report back to members on the 3rd of January in relation to the Llanfairpwll and Llancaiach schools. And then in relation to Placervelin and the Centre for Vulnerable Learners, we will bring another report back to you, but it'll be a community engagement report as opposed to the full consultation report. So tonight we're asking members to endorse these proposals and the proposed consultation process, and also to endorse the further investment from the funding that we've allocated within the document. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Can I ask, I think we have Councillor Ross Whiting back with us.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. As soon as I went to turn my camera off, Teams completely froze. So I'm back now anyway. I think Ed and Andrea have both said everything that I would have liked to say in terms of the substance of the report. But what I would like to put on record is my thanks to Andrea, Lisa, Ed and Sue and everybody involved who have worked on these proposals to get them this far, and what they'll be doing to take them further forward as well. These are big proposals, they're big things, and I'm really proud of what's been put together so far.
Lovely, thank you, Ross. Can we go to Councillor Phil Bevan, please?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea, for the work you do. I know it was a big step for you out of what you were doing before to what you're doing now, and you've taken it on and doing a damn good job. On the forward work programme that I don't have a copy of at the moment because I can't get it, I think the second one on there talks about the Band B programme again and a report. Is that report going to be about everything that we're supposed to be doing or we're planning to do, or is it just a report on the stuff you just spoke about?
It'll be a report. There'll be 3 different reports brought back in respect of what we've just discussed. So there'll be a full consultation exercise undertaken in relation to Llanfairpwll and Llancaiach proposal, and then the process that I've outlined in relation to Placervelin Primary and the Centre for Vulnerable Learners. So at this stage, we're only concentrating on phase 2 of the proposals.
So the stuff planned for Welsh medium education is on the back burner or having difficulties or what?
Well, no, the proposal in relation to Ysgol Gymraeg Cwm Gwyddon is progressing really well. We're at planning and tender stage at the moment, and obviously subject to planning approval, we'll then submit a full business case to Welsh Government. So we're very hopeful in respect of that will actually proceed very shortly, and it's planned for completion for September 23. So in relation to that one, it's full steam ahead. In relation to the other proposals, which were a new replacement school for Bedros Machyn and Tri Thomas, that proposal is still on the agenda. It's still part of our envelope that we've submitted to Welsh Government for funding for. But obviously what we're trying to do at the moment is sort of take them in bite-sized chunks, manageable chunks that we can take forward. So the first phase has been obviously taken through you as members. We're now taking the second phase through, and then obviously we'll proceed to the third and fourth phase, and then so on until we complete the whole programme.
Thank you very much. You're very good.
Thank you. Can I have Councillor Liz Aldworth now, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, can I just inquire about the pupil referral unit? Is this going to be, you know, a Monday to Friday unit? Andrea, please.
It is intended to be a full-time provision for pupils, but it will be subject to need. So there may be some children who may be required to attend there on a part-time basis, but the proposal is to accommodate 80 to 100 pupils, and I think the intention, the majority of those will attend there on a full-time basis. Again, subject to need, because once they've, if they've satisfied the process, they could be reintegrated back into mainstream education. So it's maintaining the links with our mainstream education, but making sure they have the level of provision that's required to their needs.
Thank you. Do you think you'll be employing more staff to fulfil this new unit, please?
I would imagine yes, because the capacity of the provision is expanding, so therefore there would be a requirement for the staffing level to be increased as well.
Thank you.
Lovely. Ed, would you like to come in now?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of points. I think the name itself sometimes hides what we're trying to achieve here. We really want this to be a centre of excellence for vulnerable learners. So Andrea's talked about the intention to allow those children that perhaps attend mainstream schools again with the right levels of support. That's certainly something that's written through this. I think it's also worth just mentioning in terms of Councillor Aldworth's question, although the provision from a school perspective has been set out by Andrea. Of course, when we do these 21st century school builds, we always try to make sure that there are community use on those sites as well. And you'll appreciate that our intentions with this is to create something again that can be used by the wider community outside of those school hours. So I thought it was important just to weave that extra detail in. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ed. That's very good.
That's lovely. Can I ask, are there any further questions for Andrea? Okay, so we'll move to recommendations on page 35. You'll see the recommendations on 3.1, A, B, C and D, and then the reasons for the recommendations on 4.1, 4.2 and 4.3. We'll be going to a vote. So if I could firstly ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Phil Bevan moving, and who's seconding, please?
I'll second it, Councillor Farina Childs.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farina Childs. Okay, so if we can go to the vote, please.
I've moved, Chair.
It's been carried.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Andrea. That's been carried. And And if we can move on to item number 9, that's the additional learning needs. Find it on pages 43 to 50. And could I ask Councillor Ross Whiting to introduce, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It works this time. The purpose of this report is to update Scrutiny members on the progress of the authority in its implementation of the Additional Learning Needs and Tribunal Wales Act 2018. As members will see from the report, the Act is designed to create the legislative framework to improve the planning and delivery of additional learning provision for our young people. It focuses on identifying needs early and putting in place support, monitoring and interventions to ensure the desired outcomes. Activity so far is focused on preparing for the implementation of the Act, including and especially alongside partners, including the South East Wales Consortia region and others in social care and health. Further details on the range of extensive work that has been undertaken so far can be found throughout the report. And I'd like to put on record my thanks to Sarah Ellis, her team and all partners for the huge amount of work that has gone into this so far, all in the interest of many of our most vulnerable learners. So the recommendation under 3.1 of the report is that members are asked to note the contents of the report and support the authority's practice in embedding the ALN Act. I believe Sarah Ellis may wish to make some further comments on this report and answer any questions that members may have.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Whiting. I'm happy to take questions. I think Councillor Whiting covered off the contents of the report that you've seen, so any questions I'm happy to be able to answer.
Thank you. First question comes from Councillor Carol Andrews.
No, I haven't got a question on this one, Chair.
All right, sorry, that's fine. Are there any questions for Sarah?
Councillor Bevan.
Yes, Councillor Bevan.
Yeah, sorry. I was just wondering, at Cwmrymni, we've got an additional learning centre there, and it's very extensive. I believe that it's funded mainly by the school. Is there any funding from county or from Kerry Cole? Because she's got a lot of money there, which she stores away. Is there any funding at all? Do they get funding? I should have inquired about that, but the impression I get is that it's funded by the school.
Yeah, the Havan that you're talking about, Councillor Bevan, is a school provision, as you say. I'm sure that's something we can take outside of this meeting if there's any queries that you have regarding its development.
Well, it's funding, I suppose. I'm looking for. I was just wondering whether there is any funding at all for the additional learning.
There has been funding provided by Welsh Government to implement the transformation in relation to the ALN Act. What we know is that the narrative has been all along that the implementation of the Act over the next 3 years has been cost neutral. And the expectation is significant on schools in terms of developing provision and on the local authority to review that provision. And when I say provision in this context, you know, we're not talking about Ban B developments of the type that we were hearing about in the previous item. We're talking about intervention and support for children and young people with ALN, and the local authority does have a duty to continue to work with schools to review that. So certainly, you know, would be happy to engage in further discussions with the governing body and with the head teacher regarding how that provision develops across the school.
Oh, perhaps Jane Southcombe has got some money there stored away, because she sits on a big pile of it, doesn't she?
I'm mindful that Jane's on the call. I don't want to say anything that will upset her.
There's a recurring theme tonight, though, Councillor Bevan.
I was impressed with Sarah, cost neutral. She was getting it all in. I mean, Sarah's right. I mean, that was the stance that we had from Welsh Government, that the changes would be cost neutral and there wouldn't be funding that came with some of these changes. I guess the positive news for local authorities is actually we have received some funding for the transition over the recent years, and those conversations with finance, leads for inclusion, etc. They're still going on with Welsh Government. So I suppose we're still having that conversation, But at the moment, I guess there's not a commitment, it's fair to say, isn't it, Sarah? But I suppose the signs are positive because we have had some funding to date, so we're continuing those discussions.
Yes,
it's a very, as far as I'm concerned, it's a very important part of education. There are some children that are just mentally not capable and they need more help than the average. And of course, with the situation with Cymrumney, the inspection, when the Estyn came in, one of the things they said was there are 11 children leaving the schools with no qualifications. Well, when we tried to say that those children are just, one of them was not even in the school, was in another school and not doing very well. And they were just pupils that I said, at least the one thing about them, although they didn't have any qualifications, they did come out of the school speaking Welsh, which I can't. And I thought that was good, but it didn't go down too well with the inspectors. And one of the things that we were hammered for was that. So it is essential that we've got a lot of people in that Havern unit, and it works really well. So anybody wants to come and have a look at it, you're more than welcome.
And just to pick up on Jane's point, Councillor Bevan, we have been awarded various grants over the last couple of years from Welsh Government, which we have maximised in terms of being able to sustain and develop services to support schools. And in fact, I was in a meeting with the new Director of Education for Welsh Government today with colleagues from across the region and across Wales talking about this very issue. So of course, we'll continue to keep members updated as we have more information.
So you took your begging bowl with you then? I'm impressed with
that. I'll let you know how successful we were.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Liz Aldworth, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've noticed now on page 44 of the report, Sarah, about where is it now? Well, basically, it's having childminders. Do childminders actually input information of children into our schools? Do you get a report from them, or only if social services are perhaps involved and they are sent to a particular childminder? I'm interested in the process because, early years, a lot of people spot things with very young children, but is it passed on?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the section at 5.3 where I've given some examples of the work that we've done in relation to the early years, which includes developing training for our non-maintained settings and for childminders for the very reason that you've just raised. It's really important that all of those adults who support children are aware of their responsibilities in relation to the ALN Act. We know that that has extended the age range down from, 20, so literally from birth all the way up to 25. And therefore, it's important that those colleagues have a range of information that they might not have had in previous times, and that there is a really clear transition pathway between children who go to childminders who attend non-maintained nurseries and then move into maintained school settings, that there is a transition plan that enables information and identified information about need to be shared. So that actually has been work that has been undertaken over this period of transformation as outlined briefly in the report. I think you're on mute, sorry.
Oh. Thank you very much, Sarah, for that answer.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Sarah. It's on page 46. It's referring to 5.5. Can I ask, has all the one-page profiles for the children, have they been completed?
So work has been, as I've said in the report, work has been considerable over the last 3 years leading up to this period of implementation from September now. And throughout that period, all colleagues working across the local authority and within our schools, provisions, early years, etc., have received significant degrees of training, and that has included training around development of the one-page profiles for children with ALN. So I can be confident in saying that staff are really clear about the expectation of one-page profiles, that one-page profiles are in place for children, and that's really important in terms of capturing that whole essence of the person-centred approach. You know, not anything that we round the screen or within the, you know, the education department would be you know, unfamiliar with. That idea of keeping children and families at the very centre of everything that we do, and that's embodied within that one-page profile. So yes, I mean, if members were interested in seeing some examples, that might be something that we can do within, you know, future reporting.
That would be great, that would, Sarah. And, you know, and I can imagine that it gives the staff member a lot more confidence, especially if they if they're not familiar with that particular class, that child, they, you know, one page will give them a real, like you said, an essence of the child, and they can go forward with that. So yes, I really think that's a fantastic idea. Can I say all the training for the staff, they've all been, you know, completed, have they? Or have you had problems, you know, regarding the COVID with that?
No, because we've been engaging in extensive programme of training for the last 3 years, and particularly focusing on the work of ALNCOs and the significance of that role, we've been able to develop a network of staff who work together, not just across Caerphilly, but across the region. And we've been able to enhance that with the appointment through the use of Welsh Government grant monies with a local transformation lead. So, you know, we're very confident across the region that we've been able to design, deliver and disseminate training at a range of levels. And, you know, we will continue to do that over this period. And I'll be working actually with the head teachers over the next weeks and months to make sure that the range of information that they have matches the range of information that the ALNCOs have. And similarly, we've delivered training to governors throughout this period as well, so that we're able to make sure that staff at, you know, each level of the system has the range of information that they need.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Sarah. Can I ask, is there anyone else with questions for Sarah? Okay, we could go on to the recommendations then on page 44. We are just asked to note the contents. So thank you very much indeed, Sarah, for your presentation. If we can go on to item number 10, Directive Performance Assessment Year Ending Report 20. And I'm so sorry. I'll start again. Ross Whiting, could you please introduce item number 10?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I will. And those phones always ring at the worst possible time, don't they?
Certainly they do. I put it on silent, except that phone calls come in at full noise.
It's always the way. Anyway, this report provides Scrutiny members with the year-end Education Service Performance Assessment, which is part of the Council's Performance Management Framework. The DPA, which is attached as Appendix 1 to this report, is the Directorate self-assessment and is a key part of the Council's overall self-assessment activity and provides information and analysis for 2020-21. A key aim of the DPA is about providing an opportunity for us all to see the big picture on performance and encourage reflective and challenging conversations, all aimed at further improvement. So the recommendation under section 3.1 of the report is that members are asked to review the document attached as Appendix 1 to the report and discuss, challenge and scrutinise the information contained within. I believe a number of officers are here and may wish to add further comments or answer any questions that members may have on this important report and its contents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask, are there any questions regarding this report? I know there's a lot of information to take in, lots of graphs and everything, but Is there anybody with any questions regarding this, please? Could I ask Richard Edmonds, Ed, to come in, please?
Thanks, Chair. I'm obviously not going to ask a question of myself, but there's a couple of things to point out in relation to this. Members will be aware that this performance framework was adopted just prior to the first lockdown. And we have a commitment now to review performance across each directorate on a rolling basis. So this is the year-end stuff for education. You'll probably have picked up from the covering report that reviewing performance when it comes to delivering the day job really has to be viewed through the lens of doing the day job and responding to this terrible pandemic that you've heard so much about this evening. So it would be remiss of me, whilst I've got the platform this evening, not to thank everyone involved in that response effort, but also just to draw to members' attention that in spite of that response and all of the resource that's gone into it, the Education Directorate really has moved things forward over the last 18 months as well in terms of what we set out within our Shared Ambitions document. And I think it's probably worth referencing just a signal to what might be happening over the coming years. Those of you who are keen readers of the Shared Ambition strategy will recognise its time frame was 2019 to 2022. We got off to a fantastic start and then along came COVID. So we've still made progress, but we've also got to recognise that we're getting close towards the end of that strategy now. So I think what we're going to be doing over the months ahead is reflecting on all aspects of that strategy, what's gone well, what's worked, what needs to be improved. But also we're going to start working with head teachers within the education department and with you as Scrutiny members to start thinking about what replaces Shared Ambitions from September 2022 onwards. So it's a point for us to reflect, and I think some of the data within this document is a reflection of hard yards at difficult times, but being delivered by very, very committed people. But also a reflection that we need to pause now and see what we've achieved in terms of that strategic ambition of ours and what needs to change before a new strategy comes forward. So again, I just want to position this document as a point in time. I'm immensely proud of everything that's been done. But we're also really keen as we sort of start, can I even say this, start to move back to some kind of normality within schools, heavily caveated, that we refresh that strategy. So we're focusing in again on the things that really matter in terms of what we want to achieve as an organisation. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it can be quite difficult as well. Deciphering some of the results, if you like, because of Welsh Government saying we can't do this anymore. I note, that we've still got 1 secondary and 2 primary in significant improvement, and 1 secondary and 1 primary with ESTIN review, and one's just been removed, hasn't it? 1 primary, but I understand that there's going to be some news about Cymru at the end of the week, so hopefully it's all good news there. Yes, it's very difficult, isn't it? To look at this and think we should be further along the line, but we've had this COVID epidemic, and I think all the resources that have been put in from Caerphilly Borough Council to supporting all the schools has been immense, and the work and organisation that has gone into it all has been outstanding, to be quite truthful, and I applaud every single person there involved in it, I must say. Can I ask, is there any other questions? Oh, Councillor Phil Bevan has raised his hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that on Friday, as you indicated, we're meeting ESTIN for their final deliberation on the school. Hopefully we've done enough. I think we've done enough to the 3 recommendations that they gave us. Certainly the second one on absenteeism has been an achievement, because if you think in terms of Cymru, it's got the biggest catchment area of any school, and children come from all over the place. And I didn't think we'd be able to get up to 94.3% conditions on attendance. but we did. And it's all down to one person that we, unfortunately, from Kerry Cole's point of view, we pinched her from the EWO of the counties, Sharon Risby, and she has been a force to handle, and she's been really good, and we've resolved that issue. The other two, we hope we've done enough to achieve getting out of the situation that we're in. That'll happen on Friday. I'll let you know, Chair, if we're successful.
Lovely. Well, if there's no further questions, could I ask you to go to the recommendations on page 51, where we'll be asked to review and discuss. So we've done that. There's no vote required. So I want to thank everyone there. But before I go, and before I close the meeting, I want to congratulate just a few of our school's achievements. Bochrw Primary was named regional winners in the Better Schools for Energy awards. Cwmaber Infants School, they had a National Nurturing Schools Award. Derwindale Primary actually celebrated their 100th birthday, rather, and Crumlin High Level Primary achieved Plastic Clever School status. And of course, Trinity Fields protocol has been rolled out with the Gwent Police now. So they're just a flavour of some of the things that have been going on in our schools. So it only leaves me to say I wish you a very good evening, noswaith dda, and hwyl fawr. Goodbye.
Thank you, Chair.